Welcome back to the Reframing Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Maria Sampoulos. Today's guest is Dr. Dr Provost. He is a leaseholder for Costco's. Welcome, Doc, to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Maria. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to have you on. For those of you that do not know Doc, he grew up in Atlanta. He has a bachelor's degree studying sociology, microbiology, University of Georgia. And he got his doctor of optometry degree in Southern College of Optometry in Memphis. He founded his first practice, a new Costco location in Atlanta in 2006. After operating the practice successfully for about 6 years, he moved to Austin and partnered with Costco's again there to start Great Hills Eye Care in 2012. And then grew his practice from one location to 3 locations to 6 doctors, 15 staff members. And over the years, he started also a private practice, which he ended up selling in Austin as well, and has served on the board of directors of AACO and a professional advanced consultant for Cooper Vision, talking to optometrists and traveling all over the country, talking about contact lenses. So it's great to have you on. I know how you love talking about mentoring with ODs on practice management, productivity, improving patient care, but also work-life balance, exploring Austin and then, hanging out with your wife and your 2 daughters when you have time with these 3 locations.
Right. Yeah. Gosh, you said all that and time flies, Maria. It just, when you're having fun, right?
That's right. There's a lot going on. I mean, everyone's got a family and trying to balance all these things. So I know a lot of doctors will, in a private practice, but especially in a corporate setting, want to know how to grow and scale a practice. And you've done that. But it's been challenging for a lot of doctors. Tell us about, what you found that's helped to grow from 1 practice to 3 practices, especially in a corporate setting.
Right. Well, one of the things that has been valuable and helped us to grow is to really, I've made time to work on the practice and not just in the practice, right? So I think when people start, they're kind of doing everything. They're wearing a lot of hats. They're, seeing all the patients. They're doing HR. They're doing the medical billing. And so even early on, I really made time to set aside, whether it was before patient care, at the end of the day, to find ways to grow the practice, new systems to implement, things to make it easier to scale the practice. So that was, one big area that I would recommend, people set aside time to really work on the practice in that method.
And so I would tell doctors, maybe just start small, 5 hours a week. What do you recommend on admin time a week?
Yeah. A lot of the time, it just never seems like there's enough time. Right. So one thing that has helped is I've kind of time blocked. So I'll get in my calendar and I'll, actually just put a 2-hour block for a specific task and, get that done, kind of take it off of my to-do list, put it on the calendar. And that way I know that it gets done. And so just kind of building out my calendar for the week and for the month, how I want it to look, allows me to make sure I have time to get everything accomplished.
Yeah. So you've practiced different modes. So you've had corporate practice, and then you started a cold private practice and successfully sold it. How have you accomplished that when you moved to Austin, and what did that practice look like? And ultimately, what made you make the decision to sell it and continue expanding with Costco's?
Sure. So I had a history with Costco in Atlanta. I had a location for 6 years. When I moved to Austin, I was fortunate enough to go into an existing location that we operated, but they just, they're not building Costco's in every corner, every year. So I really wanted to expand. And so I decided a few years after, opening the first one in Austin that I wanted to open a private practice. And it was a great experience. I got to see both sides simultaneously, selling materials, classes, contact lenses, the whole bit, medical eye care, and also the corporate practice with Costco at the same time. So, I really think that ultimately I saw that for me, the Costco practice really allowed me to focus more on patient care and to give the patients the best experience possible without having to worry about how many annual supplies of contact lenses I was going to sell, or what type of progressive lens the patient was going to end up getting. So by practicing in both modalities at the same time, that really kind of led me back to expanding the Costco practice, and resulted in us getting a second location and then now a third location.
Yeah. A lot of doctors will go back and forth on whether they want to be in private or corporate. Some will start in corporate and transfer over to private, and some will never transfer over. That's what they love, and they just go and see their patients, not worry about the other stuff. There's usually patient inflow there, right? So it's good to hear the both sides, and that you sold a practice too. Some doctors think that they can't sell a practice, it's cold practice when they start. So it's good that you've had experience. And at the end, I'll have the listeners, you'll give them your email if they have questions and want to talk to you about that. Because I get those questions all the time. And I've never been on the selling end. I've been on the buying end, not on the selling end. So it's good to have that. Because I just had a doctor contact me looking to sell her practice because she's kind of done with all the admin tasks of that setting. But to grow a practice, scale it, what is important in today's landscape to grow it?
Well, I think there's, just so much competition, right? There's, online competition. Even the vision plans are trying to really take our patients now, market directly to the patients. So, have online eye exams. So, it's not just, corporate practices, if you're in the private practice arena, you feel like corporate practice is eating into it. Now kind of the online is, coming after everything. So I feel like it's really important to scale your practice no matter what modality that you're in, so that you can have access to more resources, more robust business, so that you can hire the best staff, you can hire the best doctors. We wouldn't be where we're at in our practice without our wonderful team. I have to give them a shout out. All the doctors and staff in our practice are just absolutely amazing. So thank you to all of them. But yeah, I think everybody starts small, right? You start somewhere unless you buy an existing practice that's big. But if you don't scale, you're going to be doing all of those tasks yourself, forever, pretty much. So you have to, add people, add resources, and then ultimately that's what's going to, help your practice thrive in the long run.
So some of those resources, is that like adding new equipment to the office, like retinal photography, OCTs, adding new procedures to be efficient, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we really focus on the patient experience. We want to have the best technology. So we have Optos Daytonas in all of our locations. I just was at AOA and we got 3 new OCTs, one for each location. So we're going to get those installed in a couple of weeks here so we can, add even more medical care to the practice. So yeah, just, having those resources, but not just equipment. It's really about having the best software to run your practice, whether that's your, electronic medical record, your patient recall system, your, communication, your phone communication in the office. I talk to a lot of docs that are starting out, and they always say, "Oh, this EMR, it's so expensive," or this tool, right? Oh, that's like $300 a month. You say like, well, that $300 a month is going to save you like $1,000 or more in staff time.
That's
right?
Correct. Yeah.
So you really have to kind of it can be daunting at first, but you have to look past those little things and, try to implement things that are going to help your staff. It's going to help your business run more efficiently and ultimately give your patients a better experience. Cause it's it's not a, get rich quick, right? It's a long tail, on operating a practice.
That's correct. I mean, I implemented online appointments a long time ago, and my recall system online, like text messages, just automatically does it. And it saves time at the front desk. We have patients, when did they make the appointment? They made the appointment on Sunday at midnight, online. And
Right.
I think that's helpful too. That keeps them off the phone and ultimately, paying attention to the patient that's there and being able to help you. So I think it is that. So I think the mindset of a new business owner is, oh, this extra expense, this is a new business, but it helps, right? If it helps you expand and get to the next step, that's important too. So then you can have those layers and implement the next thing, the OCT and everything else. And I think baby steps. So once you get comfortable with one thing, then you can
Right.
add the other. And I think now with just the state of employees and hard to find, some employees, some offices are having a hard time, being able to do this is important. And being able to, you have these tools that you don't have to kind of worry about if they leave, right? The tools will do it for you, right? So I think that's important. I think the other big question is about, to delegate or not delegate. What are your thoughts on that, on scaling a business, and how can doctors kind of be hands off and be okay to be like, all right, I'm going to give this to you. This is my baby, but I'm going to let you control it.
It's really tough, especially when you've done everything yourself. It is difficult sometimes to relinquish a little bit of control and trust that things are going to happen. I can speak from experience that things happen and they happen well. And, not everything. Sometimes you have to, go back and rethink something or delegate a little differently. But ultimately, if you find the right people, it will probably get done better than when you were, trying to wear all the hats yourself. So I do have a couple of litmus tests for delegation. Number one is find something in the practice. Well, first of all, just start. You have to start somewhere, right? So find something in the practice that you yourself are not good at, or that takes up a lot of your time, admin. So the first thing that comes to mind would be like filing vision insurance claims, or medical claims, or credentialing, right? It's filling out a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of follow-up. Maybe take that and hand that one task off first. Another one would be if there is just something that maybe you're really good at, but it just, every time you do that task, it just depletes all your mental energy, right? And you just say like, this is something I really wish that I could hand off to somebody. Go ahead and try handing it off, see how it works. So, and if, just start with one thing, like you said, if and you'll find success, and then do the next thing. Ultimately, you can't scale if you can't delegate. So
that's correct. So you got to be able to surround yourself with good people too. And I know it's hard in this thing, but delegate, and then, but also give them small tasks, right? So once they complete it, like submitting to IMED, right? It's easy. It's online. It's the code. It's that. So, and then once they get comfortable with that, going to the next step, and adding on. And obviously when you delegate more work, you should be able to, pay them a little more. Am I correct?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yep. And, so, you have to do that. And you're going to hit different levels too. Like we're running into that now. We just opened our third location, and, we are probably at capacity on a couple of the tasks that we have. So we're having to figure out, are we going to, hire like a contract, kind of work to get us to the next level? Do we hire another full-time person, like on an admin side? So there's, you will hit those ceilings, and those local ceilings, and then you'll, kind of break through them. But yeah, it's a process that iterates. So like once you get used to it, you kind of recognize, when you're hitting that wall, and be able to break through it more easily.
So one of the big things in corporate optometry to scale a business has been, reviews, and then medical billing. How have you tackled medical billing? Because that's a big thing. And then also reviews. I know that you have a lot of great reviews online. How do we get those same reviews? And because that's great. I mean, I get a lot of patients following me and that found me. And I said, how did you hear about us? You have great reviews online. And I think that's the new word of mouth.
Right. Yeah. Well, on the medical billing side, we are very grateful to have a wonderful in-house medical biller. She's been with us for years, and she does just a wonderful job. So if that's something that you can, do, or somebody that you can find, I recommend that, because then they're really in your practice all the time. They can interact with the staff, on a one-on-one basis, do some training. So that would be, my recommendation. If that's not, if you're not to that level yet, or you, decide that it would be better to hire outside, I would interview 2 or 3 different companies that work with medical billing, and see what their rates are, how they communicate with the staff. But ultimately, if you move past just a one doctor practice, you're going to need some help, getting the medical billing done. So.
Okay. What has been some insight on getting more reviews online? Because that helps scale your business too, and getting more patients in your exam chairs.
Yeah. So, again, patient experience is number one in our practice, and following along with that are getting 5-star reviews. I'll put in parentheses, not getting 1-star reviews. So, which it's going to happen, right? Like there's, somebody's going to have a bad day, and it's inevitable. But I think, automating it is a great way. So we've used Demand Force, there's different solutions out there to automate reviews. Some, depending on how, if the location's brand new, sometimes we're more selective and we'll only send the reviews to, we'll kind of, make sure that people had a really good experience, and, 95% of the time they do, but I'm kind of a believer in not sending a review to like the one person that was just disgruntled that day.
Yeah. I tell my office, do not send a review to this person.
Right.
We do the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, why invite somebody to, have a bad day on your Google page. Right. So, in addition to just, sending the review requests out, is you have to have a built out Google business profile, Yelp page, and really any like social media, anywhere else that patients are going to find you. It's important that wherever they find you, that it looks like it's updated. It has pictures of your practice, all these things. I was talking to the Google business specialist the other day, and they sent me this whole list of things about how to optimize your Google business profile, which fortunately we were doing most of those things already. But I mean, if you think about it, like, how do people find your practice? I mean, anytime, if you're looking for a dentist or wherever you go, you pull your phone out, you type in like best pediatric dentist near me, right?
Near me is the key word. That's what they find, near me. That's what shows up on my Google, like at the end of the month, it shows you how they found you. And that's right. And when I ask new patient, or I found doctor near me, or best doctor in the area. Yeah.
Exactly. So like, if that's how you're looking for people, that's how people are looking for you. So you need to, optimize coming up for those things. And, maybe reviews aside, but that's one thing that especially in the private practice, that I had, you can get kind of lost with just how much is going on, all the different facets of the practice, and, really put a lot of time and effort into certain things that don't give you the return. But I would say, optimizing all those pages, Google, Yelp, and all those pages, and focusing on getting really good reviews, that's going to bring people into your practice, a lot more than anything else.
And you just got to continue to do it. It's not something that just ends. It's a constant thing. So you got to make sure that the staff knows that, and that you have it delegated to a staff member to do this once a day, or, a couple times a week. Or during downtime. We say, hey, it's slow time of the year. We're doing this. We're doing blogging. We're doing reviews. We're checking other things. We're recalling people we haven't seen in a long time. So there's always tasks that need to be done. And hopefully you train these people so you don't have to continue to bring these tasks up again, so you can focus on other things, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so you have a dedicated person that, in addition to sending the reviews out, responding to them is very important. So, we respond to every review that comes in. So yeah, I mean, I would say we celebrate reviews too. So, we get a 5-star review, we post it on our internal messaging system. Everybody gets to see, the great work that we did. And, sometimes it's, a specific staff member that gets a shout out. And so, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to, see that we're giving a good experience to the patients.
Now, you recently said you just went to one of the meetings and bought 3 OCTs.
Yeah, don't remind me. Yeah, no.
I mean, you're going to pay it off. I mean, you'll pay it off. I mean, what are some guidelines you follow when purchasing equipment? Because equipment's important. It's
plus
just
a photographer, plus another eye care tonometer.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. But those are all important. Those are going to add value to your practice income. The eye care tonometer I have in the practice, it doesn't necessarily bring income value, but you see patients, right? Easier, faster. It's easy to operate. Patients aren't afraid of it. So what are your guidelines on equipment besides, obviously income, but what are some other things? Maybe wow factor, patient experience. What are some things that fall in your guidelines?
Yeah, I'd say in addition to the fact that it can be a source of revenue for the practice, second thing would be patient experience, just giving better patient care, right? More efficient, more thorough patient care, because ultimately that's why patients come to see us. I mean, they want friendly and helpful doctors, but they really want, the best doctors and the best experience. So, like I was just talking to a staff member this morning in one of our practices, and she said that. And she asked me, "Hey, do all practices have the Optos?" She said because patients come in and they're always really wowed by it, and some of them have said they didn't have that or they've never seen it before, and so patients notice that. So that's the number one thing, and then the number two thing, and this is more I would say within the last 2 or 3 years, is the doctors they really want to use the latest equipment that they were trained on in school. So, when they're looking at what practice they're going to join, they want to know that practice has the most up-to-date technology. So, in addition to the patient experience, I think it helps us to attract the best doctors as well.
Yeah, that's important. A lot of doctors want that, and a lot of doctors want to practice the highest scope of their license. And I think that's what attracts a lot of doctors sometimes into some of these corporate settings, because they have the latest technology and they've upgraded over the years too, right? Even maybe to attract your practice, but maybe even to subleases, right? They have the latest technology. So that's important for doctors too. And it's a nicer setting. And a lot of them have upgraded and remodeled their offices too, because doctors want to like where they work and have a nice environment. So I think that's important. What has been some other ways for you as a practice owner to get a new associate and be most impactful and being able for them to help you scale your business? I've talked to a lot of business owners and they've said, well, we hire an associate, they have production bonuses, they have things like that, but it's never quite the same production at the end of the year income as an owner operator. And I've seen this in my practice when I work, income, we generate more income. It's just there. I mean, I think the passion for me is I'm my own business, but I've tried to hire different. It's just not the same. And for me, it's hard to digest that information.
I'm smiling because I just had this conversation with a couple of really great docs that I talk to all the time about practice management, and we have similar practices. I don't think that anybody will ever be exactly the same, although some are really close. But I think that's okay, right? Ultimately, it has to be a good environment for the doctor to see patients. And, the doctor's seeing like 4 or 5 patients per hour and trying to provide really comprehensive care, 35 patients a day is, at least for our modality, our practice is not going to work, right? We see patients on a 20-minute schedule. We try to utilize as much technology so that they get an efficient exam, but they also get really good care. So, we have like a sweet spot that I've found for our practice and our doctors. And so I realized that, let's kind of stick to that sweet spot. And that's what the expectation is. Some people are capable of doing more and really get in the groove. And then they get rewarded because they, get a production bonus for doing that. Right. But sometimes they kind of, are doing, the normal schedule. Maybe there's not a lot of extra patients coming in, but they're happy with the patient flow. So, but yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. It's just, it will probably never be exactly the same as the, if you're the owner of the practice, but that's okay.
You're able to scale to multiple practices because you have other doctors to do that. So you just set goals and hope that they want to reach those goals to get production bonuses, right? And then you
absolutely.
have the technology for them to be able to see, 3 patients an hour, and I think tech support as well. I think those are ways. And I think what has been some great ways for you to find doctors in this type of environment right now, because doctors say they want to scale or have another practice, but it's hard to find staff right now.
It is. We typically put out job postings on all the major, places. So the AOA, Career Center, Eyes on Eye Care, and several others, sometimes with the schools, Facebook. So there's lots of avenues. I would definitely say cast a wide net. The last go around, when we hired a doc, I talked to about 20 doctors and probably, did like more thorough interviews with almost half of those, after just kind of the first one. And it was really split between maybe 4 or 5 different postings that we had. Yeah. So there wasn't like one specific place that, there's the go-to place. And then it costs a lot of money to do it too. I mean, there's fees for, putting all those postings out. So,
but for you, like, is it just trying to pay above salary and things like that, or do you just find doctors want to work-life balance or want to work part-time, or are they looking for technology? What has been like, what are these doctors looking for when they maybe are attracted to your practice?
Yeah, I think it's a balance, right? So I think it's, competitive pay, but I also think it's a practice culture. I think it's a support in the practice with the other doctors. Like, we bounce ideas off each other all the time. We collaborate on things, we message each other all the time. So I think having that environment, like, the larger we've, become, the easier it is for us to attract doctors. So that has been very helpful. But I think ultimately, people want to work where they like the patients, they like their coworkers, they feel like they can provide the best care. So it's not one specific thing. It's just, having a kind of combination of those factors. Right.
Yeah. Doctors want to feel like they're involved and they want to feel like they like where they go. Right. So I think that's important. And it's not necessarily, it's private practice or corporate. I think it's the environment that the owner sets up for them. So I think I'm glad to hear that you had multiple doctors come for your interviews. So that's great. Yeah. If doctors want to contact you, for some more information, do you have an email address?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can email me. It's drprovost@greathillseyecare.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn and message me. And I'd love to connect with anybody. I have lots of docs over the years that, have relationships with, that we've bounced ideas off each other. And that's how I've learned a lot of my, tools that I use. And I know some of the other docs have, we've kind of helped them to, overcome a few obstacles that we've learned how to do. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your insights on how to scale a business.
All right. Thanks for having me, Maria. Thank you.
Pleasure.